On today's episode of the Chandler Chase Show, we're talking about different kind of excellence, the kind rooted in purpose. I sat down with Tahana Hairston, a fund manager and impact investor who's not just chasing returns, she's designing the future. From affordable housing to legacy education, Tahana connects capital with conscious, proving you can scale without selling out. We talked about building wealth with intention, how to navigate real estate through the lens of impact, and what it means to raise kids and capital at the same time. If you care about creating a world that rewards both profit and purpose, you're going to want to hear this. Tahana, welcome to the Chandler Chase Show. I appreciate you coming on. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you today?
I am well. It is such a pleasure to have you on here today. And we met in Phoenix, and I really, was interested in what you talked and what you shared with me about impact investing. And I just loved what you were doing and with the projects that you have going on. And I would love to, for you to share that with the community here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is so nice to be here with you today. Thank you so much for inviting me, Chandler, and thanks so much for having me. So my name is Tahana Hairston, and I'm really excited to join you because I connect investors to measurable impact-based real estate investing opportunities. And I'm really passionate about this because oftentimes people will say, well, gosh, can you measure impact? And what does impact mean, right? And it really starts with what we all in the impact finance world, we look typically at like the UN Sustainable Development Goals and like, what are they? But from a real estate perspective, right, we're looking at things like social equity, right? Like we're focused on providing first-time home ownership this year. In the past, we've done, affordable housing, right? For every single one of our projects, we look to use environmentally conscious materials in those projects as well. And then we keep a dashboard, a visual, technical dashboard. So that way we're not just tracking quantitative returns, which are very important, but we're also tracking the impact measurements and returns, which are the things that make the world a better place. It leaves the world just a little bit better than we found it, and it leaves the world in a better place for our kids and the next generation. So we focus particularly on real estate, and we like real estate. If you look at some of the median salaries, right, for what we're focused on this year, first time home ownership, as you know, right, the number of homeless this year, and between that and first time, for you to have a first time home, if your salary is anywhere between 50 to 80,000, right? Which, we're talking about first responders, we're talking about teachers, right? So how do you afford a home? So I like to be focused there. And 2024, there were 771,480 homeless people. So we like to stay focused on those impact measurements, which is housing.
Wow, what you're doing is so important and, so needed. And it's rare that you meet someone who's actually doing this type of work. How did you get into impact investing and helping, especially on the real estate side?
Yeah. So you and I were talking before the call. So I was a managing director of a private investing group and network 14 years ago. So think all like the Shark Tank investors, right? So think that demographic. Either A, there's been a sell of a company, or you've had a great corporate career, right? Or you're towards the end of maybe a sell on your company. And then now you think, okay, I want to invest, maybe provide some mentorship, but not roll up my sleeves anymore and be 100% active, but yet be from a passive role. And in the case of 14 years ago, we were focusing on private equity businesses, right? So we didn't focus on pre-revenue, but post-revenue. So think A round and B round, we were focused there. So with that investment community during that time, large group, but not concerned about impact. So we would syndicate capital. Syndication just means pooling money together and invest in a private equity opportunity, invest in a business. We pool money together and invest in a business. And the concern there for the investor pool was not impact focused solely. So because of my situation, right, and where I'm at, I'm a parent. I have 3 children, and I'm very conscious about the world that we're leaving to and for the next generation and what that looks like. And with private opportunities, they're my favorite because they're built with the impact component in mind. It's an inherent part of the business plan. So instead of just typical real estate strategy that you would hear all the time, right, is buy, fix up, sell it, right, buy, put some renters in after it's a fix up, a value add strat, right? There's different strategies. Those aren't solely focused on impact, and it's not even quasi focused on impact, right? So an impact real estate strategy is one where you are concerned, yes, about the financial metrics, and we know what those are in our private world. They're things that common, like when we scan, we know what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And we're also concerned without sacrificing quantitative financial returns. We're also concerned with making sure that there is an impact component. And so we will look at senior care opportunities. Like I told you, our focus, our investment thesis now is first time home ownership, right? So it has to have an impact lens as opposed to just a financial return metric for us to participate, and then for us to invite the community to join. Everything has to be profit and purpose. Everything has to be profit and purpose. So yeah, that is what we mean when we say impact. So again, for us, our investment thesis this year is first time home ownership, and every single building that we touch, we look to add environmental components that affect the building, so that way we're actually moving towards positively environmentally friendly components. So we're looking at both.
Wow. As you were talking, I felt my right brain working and my left brain, because you have this essence, like you said, of profit, because it has to be financial, it has to make sense. But then you have this element of humanity, and what is this capital doing? And that is beautiful, right? That is like a legacy in itself. What was the moment that changed everything for you?
What was the moment you said?
Yes.
So I will share that I was always interested in impact, right? So with larger companies, and we all invest in the public markets, right? Stocks, bonds, mutual fund, we all do that. Everyone does that. Fine. The difference with impact in larger, those companies are already heavily capitalized, right? We all do it. That's what it is. They're fitting ESG metrics into the business plan versus when we look at a building, right? We were just driving around in a city, with city officials last week. When we look at a city, we are looking at the opportunity, the asset, the lot, whatever. It's going to be the business plan. It's not an afterthought where we're fitting it into the business model. And so you have a business plan, then you have the financial model that supports the plan, right? So the difference is that our model will be incorporated, right, with the impact that we want to have. It's the whole reason for existence. So the transition or the moment, I will tell you, it was always in my head, right? But there comes a time where with this, you actually feel like you're making a difference. So what do I mean by that? I mean, then when others will talk to you about, oh, this is going on in the world, this is going on. Did you hear this? Right? Because of how we actively spend our time with our impact funds, I'm less prone, right, to necessarily, because you know that in your way, you're making the world better for your kids. And again, I'll be an empty nester here in a couple of years, right? So you know that you're making the world better with your resources and with your time. So for me, it was always an issue. Like I always wanted to be impactful, but the broader community did not care as much about impact. Now, right, I'm impact, right? And then the saying is that once you're able to say, this is where I'm at. And again, it's a little bit more work, right? It is more work because, you're not taking on every single project. I'm not, right? So it's more work, right? And you have to structure the deal accordingly with the plan. With that being said, it's a very comfortable way of operating through any instability, because you know that you're doing your part to have a model that incorporates purpose as well as, providing value to your investors, right? Because traditionally you would just look to, provide value in return for investors. But this time, we're making the world better for, those that are occupying and for our investors. You're doing both. So it was always there, Chandler. Again, but because it is more effort and work, I had to wait until I was at this point personally in my life. And now I'll be doing this the next 10, 20 years. So,
yeah,
it
definitely does. It does make sense. And, and hearing, what pushes you, like, where did that come from? Where you wanted to, everybody talks about purpose, right? And I feel like you're in this phase, right, of actually living through it and seeing the impact, right? So where did that come from? And to give you that drive to keep pushing when it gets difficult?
Well, the heart for impact came because I was raised as a strict Jehovah's Witness. And so we did a tremendous amount of ministry work. And the ministry was always in these lower economically challenged neighborhoods, right? From a young child, probably starting from the age of 5, multiple times a week, right? So when you're raised that way and you are ministering to these neighborhoods, the disparity that exists, you're very, very, very conscious of, right? So that started from a young age, kind of seeing that strong disparity and understanding the importance of access and what's available to you. So that heart for impact, if you're asking me where that came from decades ago. It really did come from decades ago. The education part, it's like, our lives are like these pillars, right? Where you kind of keep building. The education part comes from, we had advisors early on when I was married, early 20s, and the lack of education that our advisors bestowed upon me when I wanted it. And I was so desperate to have it. I didn't have that education. They would talk about all these sorts of other things, like how are the kids. I wanted to really understand how financial markets worked. I wanted to understand benchmarks for success. I wanted to, really understand the whole landscape, right? Which is really a lot of, frankly, I don't focus on public, but I'll high level, right? Say, here's how you tell how you're doing, or how an advisor's doing based off of, here's what, if you just put the money in an index fund, here's what, so now I'll even share that lightly, but that's not my purpose. My purpose is to align capital towards impact-based opportunities. And that's what I am most passionate about, right? So that's my purpose here on the earth. But what those pillars, the ministry work, the lack of education that I had to get on my own, right? That I had to also get through this network of, other accredited investors. I told you that my whole graduate work the focus was changing the game of venture capital. It was my whole thesis and graduate work published by the Journal of Private Equity for 3 years. And I was running this private investing group, right? And then I built a business, then I had an exit, because the best investors I felt like had operational experience. So all of these pillars lead you to being the investor that I am today. But the impact component definitely starts from when I was younger. Again, the community that I was with, the big community of investors, didn't have that strong of, didn't want to lead with that. I lead with them equally. I know what market returns are because I've been I started as an LP investor long time ago, maybe 20 years. It's been a long time. 20 years ago, maybe. It's been a long time as my first LP investment. So I've been kind of watching these things for a long time and across all asset classes. And yeah, I definitely have a heart for impact, and my purpose is to connect capital to these impact-based opportunities.
When you're looking through this lens of, like you said, connecting impact opportunities, and I feel like it's pulling on your heartstrings as well. How do you decide, all right, this is the one that we're going to do next versus, and there's so many, opportunities to do. Like, what's that process look like?
Well, I educate investors, private investors, because what we really do is we ask them to build their own portfolio, right? So that's what we do. We're a connection to our fund and our opportunity, but really, I will invite others to share that we vetted, right? Because I do invest in other things as well. The important part of that is when you participate in an opportunity and you decide to invest, or when you decide to do that, we pick our opportunities just like I educate other investors. It's the same way. You always have to look at what are the economic circumstances, right? So when we are assessing a deal outside of, yes, the team, outside of, yes, the asset, right? I'm looking in terms of the types of in terms of how we may shift. It's still the same investment thesis, but how we may focus it. We're looking at, what the economic environment may stipulate throughout that life cycle of that investment. You really do have to be forward looking and forward thinking too. So yes, it is impact. Yes, there are above market returns that we target. Yes, and yes, but we also are forward thinking as well, and looking at what are the economic circumstances surrounding this opportunity.
I love that. I love that. I was thinking of, you share with me what drives you, right? This movement for change and obviously impact. But what haunts you, right? What is, what keeps you up, and the issues that you're facing that no one talks about in doing this type of work?
What keeps me up with it at night? I don't know, Chandler. I pass out at night. Some people can't sleep. I'm one that I'm out.
No.
I pass out at night. I don't think there's much that can keep me up, if you want me to be honest, right? With that being said, right, when we are driving through cities and we are thinking about what kind of opportunity, to be frank, sometimes it can really get that part can get a little heavy because there is so much opportunity. Like I said, there was 771,480, homeless people in 2024. Now you can't take the world's problems on you, right? But you can do what you're capable of with your time on earth. Does it keep me up? No. When you're driving around in some cities and you're talking about what the median income is, yes, I'm a capitalist with a heart. So it always makes me pause. Always.
Do you feel, that because you have this heart that you're, misunderstood between certain investors who are like, what's going on here for these projects? Or is it more of an educational piece where listen,
no,
we can achieve both?
Yeah, no. I'm clear that, we're leading with it. Otherwise, you can't continue to do this work, right? If it's just philanthropy, because you're always looking for a donor. I just spoke at the sports philanthropy conference talking about nonprofits moving to impact funds. So that way you can be more cyclical and you can continue to do more, right? Because if you service your investors, well, then they'll participate again. So you have to be capital focused 100%. No, I'm not misunderstood. I think it's a new lens that you just share and explain, right? But that really, frankly, things like that come in time, right? Had I not been an LP investor in 20 years, I could not easily enunciate like, okay, here's what I'm going to do now, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you're essentially made for this, right? Now there's no discrepancy on your vision and what your team is achieving. So if you could, if you could talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself to the Tanea then?
Oh, I tell myself that you're going to be just fine. I tell myself that you're going to be just fine and you can't see it yet, but just wait.
I feel like the waiting part is so hard, especially as you don't know, right? What's next? And you just, doors open. Do I take this door? In your career, how did those decisions affect you, right? How did you know, all right, I'm going to stay in this LP position, or it's time for me? Like you said, you had a couple exits, right? How did you make those decisions?
Oh, well, just wanting to be better, right? So when I ran the investor community, I was like, okay, I've worked with so many investors. The best investors had operational experience, meaning that they had actually had an exit. I'm going to go start a business and get an exit, right? That was a, 5-6 year journey, right? The 5-6 year journey, just like that. Boom, just like that. So I wasn't trying to hit a home run, wasn't trying to get was not trying to create, a venture backed company. I was just trying to hit, if you know baseball, I was just trying to hit a single or a double.
Yeah.
Baseball terms, right? I wasn't trying to hit a home run. The difference is that I just wanted to have a lifestyle business, right? And the challenge is to have a business where we can sustain our lifestyle with me and the kids, right? And not touch our savings, let's call it that, right? So that was the challenge. And in doing so, right, to understand how to create a concept. Now, there's some things there that I did that I would have never done had I known back then. First of all, I would have never started something. I should have taken some of the capital I had and went and bought a business to get the operational experience. But in my mind, I was like, the best investors had operational experience, right? We're investing in these post-revenue startups, basically. And I'm going to go start something. And now, if I could rewind, this was, 13 years ago, if I could rewind that, I wouldn't have done that. I would have, I love the operational experience, right? Managing people, understanding KPIs for success, the funnel process, right? All of those things I use now as a fund manager, right? That I don't really need other people because I was so intimately involved in that. So things build on top of other things in a surprising way, to be quite frank. That having that business, again, it was a single or a double. That was really just my goal. And to really understand when I was looking to invest, in more private equity businesses, how to be a good investor from that lens. That's what I was doing. And then I would do real estate, on the side, but then I was, more focused there. Yeah. So everything just kind of builds on top of the other. It just really builds. What I found is that real estate, out of all the asset classes, when we're talking to a community of accredited investors, real estate is the easiest for them to understand.
That doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows wealth is made in real estate.
Go ahead.
So we've talked about the business. I want to, talk about family, right? You said you have kids and you'll be an empty nester soon. Are they following in your footsteps in this capital and world of profit and purpose?
Yes, but they will, they'll take some time to get there. Yep. So, and I want them to take some time to get there. So my son is playing baseball in California, right? So he has a goal to try and do that. And he's in college. He is majoring in finance, but he has a goal to do that. And I see him investing in more social impact companies, more social, right? I see him more being on the social PE side. I have a daughter who also is a freshman. So he's going into sophomore year. She's going into her freshman year. She already has an internship. It's a #1 cancer clinical trial. So she's going to be my great large complex deal. So what we'll do is we'll kind of switch it out, right? I don't know if they'll all just be focused on real estate as fund managers, but I see them all in a space of whether it's, debt or private equity or venture. I see them, kind of in the ecosystem, but in some time, right? Yeah, in some time. I'd rather them kind of go work for an investment banking company first for about it. I'd rather them go do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of good grunt work that, they learn in those environments.
Yeah, my daughter, I'd rather her go. She's working for the number cancer. I'd rather them go do that first, and then 10 years or so they can come back, and then we'll talk.
I'm in mama's world.
Yeah.
No, that is great. So I always ask, like, what is legacy to you?
Yeah. So those are one of our 3 pillars, by the way. So it's impact, legacy, and investing. Those are our 3 pillars of IIC. Legacy for me, and I do actually in my newsletter, I write about this, and I give like a reflection point. I've really thought a lot about legacy because it's really important. And for me, it starts with education. And the education of legacy, starts at all levels, right? So for an example, at the base point, legacy is something handed down from one generation to the next, right? That's really what it means. At the most fundamental point, I see it as knowledge and education, as well as, right, finance, character, purpose, contribution, right? All of these things as well. But I'm going to give you one example. My daughter, my youngest, wanted to go and, study and, over in the UK. It's a substantial investment for her to go and do that. I asked my older two, I go, look, you guys are all set, you guys are done, etc. What do y'all think about taking from what we have? And I'm just telling you this is at a fundamental level, because it can start just right here. What do you think about taking what we have and going to allocate some capital towards her to go and study in Europe, right? Just simple things like that. Do you guys think that's a good investment? What do you think? Because this is our collectively money. Something can happen to me. I mean, I'm young, right? But something could, and then it's theirs. So, and getting them involved at a young stage, right? Getting them involved. So that's just one. When we did our city tour last week, talking to them about that, they showed us 5 lots that we could use as options. We looked at one building, right? It was this number of units, right? Here's how the previous predecessor owner left the asset, right? So it's having those kinds of conversations first. And I think that that's just knowledge in terms of conversations, daily conversations, just casual conversations. I think that it really starts there. And because when you don't have them think of, I see it, right? When you don't have them think of what value they're going to bring to our world, to our earth, then all of a sudden they can become more self-centric, as opposed to, how am I going to move through this world to bring significant value during my time on earth? And having those conversations switches a thought process, because all of a sudden it's like, okay, this happened for me instead of to me. This happened for me because now my purpose is this. I am going to bring this value to the earth. Well, I guess I better get about the business of getting ready to do that value, right? And so then you're more constructive. Like you use verbiage like, my son is going to Tampa for 3 weeks. I took him to the airport yesterday. I said, okay, every single hour. Now, I don't know if you want to ask me this question because I am very meticulous about it, So I say, okay, so every hour that you spend, I want you to ask yourself, does this invested hour contribute to my long-term goals?
Wow.
Right now, you don't have to be so, strict, but I'm telling him that intentionally because I think he came back from college and I think we need to do some work there. But it's really about having that investing mindset, passing that down, having the giving value mindset, passing that down. And you have to start there. And then you can say, right, okay, so then this is what we have. This is what I have saved. Or this is what we have, whatever you want to call it, savings, wealth, whatever. Right now, it's your job to be a good steward of the capital, right? And what does that look like? But even before you get there, to me, it starts with what are you handing down? And it starts with education, it starts with knowledge, and it's really learning how to invest with integrity, because investment is not just capital or money, it's also our time. That's our most important collateral. It's our most important asset is our time. So it's also about that too.
Yes. You're exactly right. That's the one thing everyone in this world has, 24 hours. And what do you do with it? So when you said to your son, does this hour reflect this investment? It is, like you said, it's a difficult question to answer because there's so many opportunities to do with your time. And, the exposure of the level of thought that you're giving to your children is beautiful. And I think, like you said, that's where it starts. So it's so great to hear that you're doing that for your children. And I think the continue of that, I think it'll be beautiful for what you see that your children would do. That's great. So how can people get in touch with you? And, what do you have going on?
Thank you. So my website is IIC Capital. Just put a dash in between the C and the C. And my email is Tahana, TANAHA at IIC-Capital. But really, what we care about is obviously impact, investing, and legacy, right? So our subjects are related to impact, investing, and then legacy, right? If you have a DAF, right, you can invest in our opportunities because they're impact-based. Or another charitable giving tool to get an immediate tax deduction, you can invest in our funds because they are always impact-based. Those are the funds that we have. So yeah, I would love to support impact-focused investors. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tahana, thank you again for coming on the Chandler Chase Show. I appreciate your time and allow me to, hear more about your journey and share it.
Thank you, Chandler. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You as well. All right, that was Tahana Hairston, living proof that impact and excellence are not mutually exclusive. If her story resonated with you, don't just sit on it, share this episode. Start the conversation because the world needs more capital allocators who lead with heart and more investors who understand legacy starts now.